Okay, we are recording now.
Okay.
Got it.
So I wanted to have this kind of sit down conversation, talk about the industry, talk about AI, talk about, a couple different things here. And I think I had a few things that we could talk about here, but what specifically have you been, tell me a little bit about your background and let's start with that and, how you got into SEO.
Oh my God, that was a long time ago. I've been in
Yeah.
I've been in SEO basically since 1998 for probably about 26 years now. I started by teaching myself HTML, CSS, building
Mhm.
websites, Adobe Photoshop, and everything pretty much avalanche from there into everything you see today. So I have I have worked on large websites, small websites. I've got my official start in SEO in 2007. So I was working at a real estate hosting company in their support department. That company ended up getting acquired, and then that ended up in me doing a lateral move into the digital marketing slash SEO department. And I've been
Good.
doing SEO full time ever since December 2007. So not exactly one of the OGs, but pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I go back a little further. I was actually a technical writer back in the 90s. I kind of classically trained, if you will, for technical writing. And it's interesting because, technical writing was really just, you know, um, a table of contents and then really organizing your content. It
Yep.
was originally just, yeah, you got a bunch of content, but, it was, headings, H1s, H2s, H3 tags, and bulleted list and everything really
Yeah.
that, HTML, the classic HTML came back with. And I was doing, online help in the 90s and,
I
uh,
remember when
that kind of
classic HTML used tables for design with 250 columns and 350 rows.
Yeah, I mean, it was really pretty much, pretty much very, very basic and
Yeah.
having an organized page and having,
Yeah.
organized content, and all that. I mean, it
Yeah. And
really
before I
just
knew it in
was,
'98, I apologize, Bill. And before I knew it in
no,
'98, that's
no,
exactly
yeah,
what you're saying. I was doing SEO before it was called SEO. It's basically exactly
yeah.
like you said, creating an organized, well-structured web page that's good for users and search engines.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because now, here we are, what, 20 some odd years later, and in
Yep.
fact, we're kind of back to get back to that and even with I even with AI content. I mean, even we're back to nowadays, with my kind of, I'll go through my process, for creating and figuring out content. But frankly, a lot of those basics. And someone will come back and I still see a post on a Facebook group that says, "Oh, well, I just I create eight articles on my site and all that are 400 words, and that seems to work very well for me." And it's just not. I mean, it just is maybe one of those might be okay, and then all the Google's ignoring or just doesn't put much weight into all the other ones that you're doing. I mean, it's
Yep.
just is, I still find it amazing, that, how there's just so many SEO myths out there, but
Oh yeah.
still, I mean, it's just like, come on, let me go through my process and tell me what you think. If I didn't have, all sorts of additional tools, what the basic is, let's start with, okay, I have a brand new domain name and website. And so I would actually go to chat something, an AI like ChatGPT and say, you know what? And ask it literally, I'm creating a new website um, about search engines. On, a new domain that I've really just got, just acquired, searchengines.net. And so I tell them, tell it, and then I'll explain, well, what pages, if I'm writing a page about search engines, what what content and what pages would someone expect to see if they go to a website about search engines? It could be about red widgets, it could be about roofing, it could be about Dallas roofing, it could be about, San Diego home inspection, whatever it is. And
Right.
kind of, my process and it's interesting because, with all the knowledge that, the AI has, it comes back and says, hey, you need to talk about this, that, and the other, and that's a good start. I mean, it's kind of, you kind of start to think, okay, well, these are the different topics that I need to mention and create either, those could be, and then depending on that, those could be a section of the site where, you're talking about, if it's home inspection, you're talking about real estate and or buyer, buying a house and so forth. And then you could have another, that could be a whole series of pages. Or it could be just one page. You need a page about this or a page about that. And so you kind of get an idea by, talking or asking the AI about what kind of topics and that kind of starts to give you some relevancy and kind of a little focus on that, on that topic for the whole website. Then, of course, you get into, oh, then you can ask it, oh, I'm writing a section about real estate, or I'm writing a section about this. Tell me the different pages that I need. And so you start to, and then the next after that, as the sections, oh, I'm writing a page about this. And then it'll come back and ask it to give me the topics, the headings and the subheadings and sections of content that I need to mention on that page. And it's interesting because it really comes back with, a fair amount. I mean, obviously from there you could then dig in further and tell the AI to write that content, or you can take that and give it to a writer. But that's kind of my process. There's tools that help you do that process kind of a little bit faster or a little bit, more optimized or whatever. But, frankly, if you were to use that process, even if you, don't do, the traditional, SEO, you're probably going to come up with a kind of halfway decent site, you know.
Right.
Um, because my opinion is that you're not really focused on keywords. I mean, you
No.
sure, yeah, okay, I want to rank for Dallas home inspection or San Diego roofing. But yeah, and sure, okay, put that, in a title tag and put it in, and mention it, make it clear that you're a roofer in San Diego. But
Right.
when it comes down to it, I mean, um, it's not, I mean, I can't believe I'm still hearing, keyword density. And not when someone,
Yeah. I mean,
mentioned.
it's
I mean,
literally that's literally 2000 SEO. SEO for the year 2000, basically. maybe
Yeah,
even a
I mean,
little
it's
bit
about
earlier
20
than
years,
that.
about 20
So
years.
it's sort of like sometimes people get stuck in their ways and don't get moved forward to more productive strategy. So like now, it's more about the topic and the entity and what's discussed on the page than the actual keyword being repeated over and over and over again. Search engines have evolved beyond that by a lot. So you can't really base SEO on just one keyword or two keywords or whatever. Now you can interweave it into the targeting of the page and make sure that you talk about the topic enough that it is in line with what your competitors are talking about. But on the whole, it's well beyond just doing basic keywords.
Yes, I mean, and the reason for that is that, as technology has evolved, I mean, that's, it sounds like a big, high level phrase, but, search engines are using AI just like we're using AI, but they understand natural language
Yeah,
a
NLP,
lot
natural language
more and a
processing.
lot better than, and yes, I mean, it used to be, programming and, I think the one of the earliest, um, you know, SEO type of, exposure that I had was when I could probably what we weren't talking about. It was just rankings. It wasn't SEO or anything like that.
Right.
It was keyword density, and what was happening is that you would, it was there was essentially a someone had come up with the perfect keyword density. It was like 13.67%. And that was, used at the time. And so basically I remember specifically that people were hiding their code and
Yes.
on the page. It was kind of was like JavaScript, either doing a JavaScript redirect or some kind of,
Yep.
or cloaking or something. But the
Yes.
idea was that there was a paragraph or two paragraphs of text. And I remember specifically that there was one that was a something about the Washington and chopping down a cherry tree. And they had used that, two or three paragraphs. And if you search and replaced, rather than cherry tree, you used your keyword you wanted to rank for. You swapped it out. It was the third, it came out to the perfect 13.67% keyword density. And you would rank just about any keyword. And so and the search engines, they did look at title tag, keyword in the title tag, and they did look at meta description tag, and they did look
Yeah.
at, mentions of that on the page. And so it was the amount of processing power they had, it was and so forth, and be able to, go through all, the pages that they knew about on the web.
Yep.
And, that was it. And now, now we're talking about, so many different, changes that, then we got into 200 ranking factors. So I remember it was 200 or so. And, it was links and anchor text and, keyword and title tag and, and so forth and bolded italic and all that. And, it was interesting. I mean, and so we have evolved. And, so now it's not really about keywords. I mean, as an SEO, we can start with some keywords. I mean, I think that keyword research is still a good place to start for in a lot of areas. Um,
Yeah, you need to
however,
know exactly what you're targeting in terms of the competitive landscape, right? I mean, you can't
yeah,
exactly just willy-nilly go after something and expect it to bring search volume. You have to figure out what the current search volume of the market is, what your competitors are doing, but you don't want to do exactly what they're doing because what if they're doing something that's not exactly in line with what Google's looking for, right? So you kind of have to run a balance between that and what you run on your own website.
yeah. I mean, so I mean, yes, it comes down to, yeah. I mean, Eddie Geo, San Diego roofing. Okay, let's start with that. San Diego roofer, San Diego roofing. But there's and it's easier to like when to go through that process with the AI and asking it the questions. I mean, um, sure, that's a great way to start. I mean, I am a San Diego roofer. I'm creating a website. What
Yep,
pages should I create? And then then obviously you can, once that is created and so forth, I mean, you can do things, you can start looking at competitors and what they're, what they're ranking for and what they're, um, what content. I look lately at doing entity analysis, which is essentially kind of the same thing as kind of like, okay, if I'm creating a page, that I want to rank for, San Diego roofing, what do I need to mention on that page? You know, um, and so, those would be, you need to mention, the various entities. You can do
yep,
some analysis on who's ranking and what, topics and subtopics and headings that they're mentioning on their pages,
yep,
kind of combine everything that, what they're doing and,
exactly. And it's kind of like you
have,
have to look at.
do a better
It's not like
page.
I apologize, Bill. It's not like you can look at just a couple of people who are ranking, right? You have to look at top 10 and overall
Sure.
organic results and see what they're talking about on their pages, see what you can include on yours to kind of match and get an algorithmic advantage and see where you can fall in line with all of that so that you can at least get to the top 10. And then maybe you can use some additional SEO to boost your site to number one, depending on the competitiveness of that particular space.
So here's a question, it's interesting because I know, so what are your thoughts around uh, what if there's no keyword research or nobody's written about this before? Maybe it's breaking, maybe it's news, or maybe it's you have a news website. Okay, so it's a challenge because really there's
No
no,
baseline.
it's there's not a lot, there's you do a search and SEM Rush or even, God forbid keyword planner or something like that, and you don't even and there's no searches. But you've kind of identified that this is a, you know, breaking news topic, or this is something that nobody's really written about. That's the challenge, is that that but you want to kind of, I get, so it's you don't really know what of that topic. You don't really know yet. Nobody's created a page about that yet. I mean, so you're the first. And I'll tell you some stories about being, my theory about being the first on something with content. But
Oh, that's always
you
fun.
want to, maybe even ChatGPT or any of these AIs don't even know anything about the subject. So it's kind of, I guess you're kind of left to, okay, if I'm writing about this, what can I what I'm writing about this new breaking news thing or this new discovery or something. I guess you have to kind of the way I would do it is, there's going to be certain you kind of have to think about what somebody or estimate or guess what somebody would try and search for. If it's a company name, yeah, I mean, you'd mentioned a company name, or if it's a concept or something, or break, so you would kind of start with that, and then, if there's, in my opinion, if you would, in the first couple paragraphs, in the content, you would explain everything. And if you can do screen captures, if it's something online, then sure, you can describe things and everything. And then any kind of related topic, you might be able to explain what, doing some definitions of, or explaining what something is, or why it's important, just to add some additional content. And I think it's kind of, you know, I started off in the early 2000s as I discovered expired domain names. Okay. And,
Yep.
it had some value. And so what I was doing is I would buy an expired domain name, and I would figure out that this website still had, for example, for about us page, they used slash about. And, they had some, page about, maybe, team.html or whatever, other pages they had on the site, the URLs, not the content, but the URLs. And so what I do is I realized that, okay, let's say that, I would actually create 10 pages on 10 different old URLs. This was the time when if you submitted a new page, okay, this wasn't a time when you submitted a new page to Google, and 2003 to 2006, 2007, 2008, etc. You submit a new page. If there's a brand new URL, Google will take about 2 weeks to crawl and index that page. But
Yep.
here you have some kind of break, the traffic was from breaking news. So here's a kind of breaking something on, on that would appear on CNN or some kind of breaking news item. The key, what I discovered is that Google needed to know about those URLs ahead of time. So for example, let's say, slash, 123.html, the website still, I would establish that page. I would put some nonsense, literally lorem ipsum content, whatever. It didn't matter what the content was. Okay. And I'll get it crawled and indexed. And it would, so I did about, 20 or 30 I would call them holding pages. So it was fun because when, Google wasn't quick and at that point. But if you went to a page that they already knew about and you updated it with brand new content, they
Yep.
would crawl it, and within 30 minutes to an hour you would get it in there. So here's a breaking news event, and the news sites, they would add a page, a new page about the breaking news, et cetera. It'd take a week or
Yeah.
two for them to get crawled and indexed. Well, I already had the page ready. I would change it, and then within an hour or two, I was ranking number one. Now, that's the key.
Yeah.
Now, let's take it further. The reason why that worked is, yes, I would get the traffic because people were searching, and I was the only one with content about that breaking news
But
item.
I
When
have
you
something for you
are
though. I have something for
well,
you. I have something interesting for you though in that regard. Very
so when
interesting.
you, so what I'm saying is, when you were the first to be out there, then other sites would then actually, and blogs and bloggers and all that
Yep.
time, they
Yep.
would then link to you because you're ranking number one for that subject,
Yeah.
okay, and that topic.
Yes.
and you're the
And
first.
I was in a past life, I was able to get rankings for breaking news, like not just breaking news, but maybe standard topic, topically focused articles by writing a page. But the reason why it would be in the top 10 within 24 hours is because I would be writing 5 to 10 posts per day on this particular website. If you get updated with that kind of quantity of posts, and then most of those posts would be ranking in the top 10 for their respective topics and keywords. So sometimes multiple keywords depending on how it was written for the
Sure.
particular topic. And the key to is that nowadays is you want to have something that is mobile and nimble in terms of being updated in that fashion, right? Keep things, you want to be like literally the news authority in that niche.
Yes,
And the way to
definitely.
do
I mean,
that,
it's,
be
you know,
like that
so
industry's own Barry Schwartz.
yes. Yeah, so definitely be the yeah, and you get links. Now, I would I had various I had several hundred sites. I mean, a lot of sites that were, a lot of them were expired domains, a lot of them ended up being new domains. I had a business to business um sort of news network. So what I would do is I never could outrank the company name because that was their website, but I also always wanted to be second, third, and fourth. So if I covered the news about that company, there's a lot of searches about a company, and people would click through to, the second or third listing because they weren't really looking for the website in particular. They knew, the company website, but they wanted to look at, the news about that company or from a different source. So I had, that worked well. And then, that came to, there was an interesting link building technique is that, what you would do is say your topic is, you're roofing and you have a news website about, roofing companies and, the roofing
Right,
industry. Well, do a search for in the news and, a roofing. And what you would find is a lot of major companies their marketing departments will create a section on their website where they've mentioned in the news, and they would then link back to, even if you're not a news source, and you wrote an article, or you're a blogger or something like that, you would, if you find companies in your industry that typically write, will link to where they've been mentioned. Okay, they'll link to, my news or my blog or my news site or so forth. There's companies that still do that. I mean, they're traditional media companies, traditional marketing departments, and they will have, a press release section on their site. They'll have for their press releases, they will have, in the news and etc. And so you can, if they don't find you that you've written about, article, then sure, tell them, send them email saying, hey, we wrote an article about your latest, product or something like that. And so that they already have an in the news page or in the news section. And so you can get some really, really high, quality links like that. That kind of brings the question, my question to you is, do we even need to spend time getting link, doing link building anymore? Um, sure, we
I
need to
would
do
say
maybe digital PR, but the old style link building, I mean, frankly, if I have a site and I've gotten to a certain point where, yeah, I have some good links and so forth, and I'm doing all right. it comes down to, there's an emphasis on content where I don't have to do a lot of link building that I did have to do maybe 5 or 10 years ago. So what's your thoughts you know, about
And
links and link building and so forth? Do we need to do it as SEOs anymore? And how much
I would
time
say
percentage? Do you think it's 75% link building and or 75% content? Or what's your thoughts around that?
I would say that it's more like 80% great content, 20% some link building. Because the links that you get are going to come from the great content that you write. So you want to have the content that gives your site the authority enough to impress people in your industry enough that they'll want to link to you. You want to build those relationships. And that's what the important part is about links. Like, it's not like, say, 10 years ago, where everybody was doing link exchanges and exchanging with everybody else in the industry. And then Google finally ended up penalizing that one with, so like in the attorney industry, they all still do it. Um, and some sites get walloped as a result of doing that. And so it takes a lot of cleanup just to really actually get the site back to getting any traction at all, just because of that specific link building technique. Now, there are also as well, uh, I had probably worked on at least one site in that niche that was literally part of a massive toxic link negative SEO campaign. And that probably required, it was much easier 10 years ago to do that kind of thing, but now Google mostly ignores toxic links, especially when it appears as if a competitor is actually working to do some manipulative toxic link building, right? So it's not as prevalent as it was 10 years ago, but can still happen if somebody knows what they're doing, but it's less of an issue now than it was.
Yeah, I
So
feel like
as far as
still, I
links
mean,
are concerned though, I believe it's really 80% dependent on your content and 20% would be your link building, but it depends on the actual niche and competitors and your marketplace as far as the link building that's required, right? So if you're in a big market like Los Angeles, you might have something that's more towards 65% great content than 40 than 35% good link building, for example. The ratio might adjust, but it all depends on whether or not you're informational niche, uh, e-com, or whatever, because different types of niches require different adjustments to your strategy.
yeah,
Because
I mean, for a brand new
because it's
site,
like, you can't really, to conclude that, you can't
yeah,
really do a cut and paste or copy paste strategy and expect it to apply to every single website. And SEO doesn't
exactly.
work that, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, I feel like though, definitely with a new site or a new, maybe a domain that's changed topics or something like that, you need a certain amount of links. I wouldn't say amount, you don't need to say, you need a certain, you need certain links to be able to send some trust over enough so that, so that you're in Google's graces, and or if you're, you have some kind of, I hate to use the word authority because so many people throw the word authority out there,
Yep.
in all sorts of different, you know, meanings. And, there's 2 dozen different meanings of the word authority. Um,
Yes.
However, you need some kind of, need to get to a certain point where they say, okay, this is not just a spam site anymore, and not just a low quality site. It's just
Yep.
it's legit. And then they can, then when you start to really kick up, and do the right content, then it's gonna do well. I mean, I can tell you it could be one link. I mean, literally. Unfortunately, that I have, an example would be a B2B, very niche industrial B2B company that does, services, industrial equipment, and and so forth. And frankly, it was one directory listing. I hate to say directory, but it was a very large site, that's an industry relate, about around industries and B2B and so forth. And my client, has been with me probably 10 years. And 3, 4, maybe 5, 3 or 4 years ago, we just came across that, and he paid for the listing, which is like $700 a year. Um, but frankly, you know, it it's not a great looking site. It's probably from, early 2000s,
Oh,
but it
actually,
has,
those kinds of
it
sites still
has
around.
really good content. And that one link has made a massive, maybe it's trust, maybe it's, I mean, massive, detail, massive change. And now I don't really do many links. They have, they have some links, but it's not, it's nothing that I've done really link building. I concentrate
Right.
now on content for that site. And so it's at the point where after that, getting that directory listing, now I can create a new page on the site, and literally in 45 minutes, it'll rank within the top three. In a lot of cases, number one, in 45 minutes, brand new page, brand new content on that site. So there's something to do with, authority being passed and trust and so forth.
Yep.
It's one link. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
It
It
has to.
is literally one link that
It's
makes a
literally
whole
been
difference.
around for decades. It's been around for decades, so much so that it's become an authority for that particular business. It's
Yes,
basically
I
the
mean
secret.
yeah, I have a couple sites like that are old news websites that I've established. I started in 2003. Um, and they've been around. And I did a few, with, things with, industry, industry conferences. Okay. So for example, my news website, which was only me, and I had 27 other news websites, but I was official media, official, one of the official media partners for that conference.
Oh
And
wow.
so I've been, once you get into being, there's probably, that in one industry, there's probably 20 different conferences. And once you get to be a media partner for one, then they all will message you or email, get in touch and say, would you like to be the, media partner for our conference? And so,
Yep.
and then you get the links from the conference. And obviously the company is, the companies themselves links to the conference because they're going to be at booth what
Yep.
at 27 at whatever conference in the conference press. So it's kind of a
Yep.
whole, link exchange thing, kind of. But it happens. It happens. And
Yep.
there are still conferences out there in certain a lot of industries where that's a possibility. I mean, you need a logo, and you need, ask. for media passes or something. And that's why,
Yep.
blogs, I mean, blogs still work if you're a blogger. I seen that question. Is it worth it in 2025 to start a blog or to have, keep having a blog? And yeah, I mean, I really do think that, it's yeah, I mean, it definitely is. If you're looking for, on the other hand, if you're looking for expired domains, what I have found is that, it's interesting. So somewhere I was doing some link building or something or some research, and I found something interesting. Is, there was a whole for many years, there were a lot of mommy bloggers, okay? And that was the thing.
Yep.
And now it's, all those mommy bloggers are on TikTok and doing YouTube shorts and all that and Instagram reels and all that.
Oh yeah.
But what it used to be there's still, so you can still find, the mommy bloggers if you're in that industry, or if you're in something that they may have talked about or something. Um, it was interesting because I came across some posts and some news, some articles and so forth about the top 100 mommy bloggers. Okay. And, they had a top, and the top 10 list and so forth. Okay. Various niches. I started to go through, and this was a list that was just put out, 2 years ago. So not very long, maybe a year or two ago, the top,
Right.
top mommy bloggers of 2023 or 2024. And
Yeah.
they listed the top 20, the top 10, the top 100. I started to go through those, and to be honest with you, about 80 to 90% of those mommy blogs didn't even exist, and the domain names were not even,
Oh my gosh.
were not even, registered anymore. I mean, you
Oh
could
my
literally,
gosh.
and so what I discovered is that, looking back, I discovered that, the someone would start a blog and do it, mommy blog, and you start to look at the posts, and they would blog every day, and they were really going well and doing great
Yeah.
content, and taking photos, doing reviews of strollers, and doing new reviews of, all sorts of stuff. And then it kind of, maybe 3 to 6 months that the posts kind of slowed down to once a week, and then it kind of slowed down a little bit to once a month, and then, maybe
Uh,
every couple of weeks. And then by the time the first year ended, they weren't making what they thought, they could make by doing, being a mommy blogger and getting all
yeah,
these,
they probably thought
first.
they would be making 100,000 a month or something like that, right? Some wild figure like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, they would do that, and and they were, creating these great, these sites, and by the time, a year came around, maybe they would renew the domain name, maybe they wouldn't, and they gave it up.
Yeah.
That was 2 years ago. I mean, now, now they're on TikTok and making that, or they have or they have an OnlyFans page, and they've gone that route. But yeah, so, it's interesting. I mean, so I wanted to mention, there's, expired domains. I did want to mention, though, that, about content, because there's still SEOs out there that really think that they can, buy expired domain, go to the Wayback Machine, archive.org, literally steal the content, steal the content from the old site and put that back
Well,
up and
there's
so
nothing
forth.
that stops anybody from doing that. Just be prepared to face the penalty when the owner of the site comes back and sues you for stealing their content.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, so definitely, yeah. And I've gotten,
And hey, I shut this site down. They're not supposed to be running this site now. That's my content. Knock it off.
Yeah, I've had some extreme cases where, that I know of that um so anyway,
So yeah,
so
definitely don't do that is my recommendation. Don't ever do that.
yeah, I mean yeah, I mean, unfortunately there's, there is software that will, that will go and you can, will scrape.
Yep.
And if you originally, I have had, there are situations where maybe your web does, you were paying your web designer and, and whatever, and and somehow the website went down and with your business and so forth. Um, and you don't have access to the website anymore, and website and domain name went
Right.
down. Sure, you may be able to go back and recover that. Um, but yeah, buying a domain, there are some extreme examples out there where, where I mean, it's. I know of one in particular where a research hospital, nonprofit research hospital, literally closed, and it closed. But some SEO somewhere, some blackhead SEO, um, and went and bought the expired, .org domain and literally put the hospital's website back up. And because they wanted some links. And so there's still, so much confusion out there of whether the hospital, still exists and so forth. And it's been closed for, several
I was being
years. And
intentionally dramatic because I'm not surprised. I'm not
yeah, I
surprised at
mean,
all.
it's
I've seen
yeah,
those some of those same kinds of issues over the years. So it's like nothing surprises me anymore. It's just like, why? Why did you shoot yourself in the foot? I mean, you can shoot yourself in the foot. Just don't blame us when Google decides to penalize you for it, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, it's and the other thing is, I mean, there's for your person, like for example, I mean, I've had a lot of people come to me. I recover stolen domain names. I recover because I'm so embedded in the domain name industry. I can usually get back a domain name because I know a lot of people at registrars and I know the process and
Yeah.
the legal aspects and so forth. And I've had so many people just come to me and say, I didn't read you, I had myname.com and it's unique and and I didn't renew it. But now, you go in and it's an adult site, or now you go to that domain, I didn't renew the name and now it's, a casino site. And I'm really concerned that my public image is around is showing a casino site and so forth. I mean, just I know it's $10, $10 to $11 a year at the lowest. For literally for $100, you can register it for 10 years and in advance and just do that. And, you know, I mean, $50, renew it for 5 years and just, even though you're not gonna, you don't have plans to even have a website on it anymore. Um, just do that. You're gonna save so much hassle.
Yep.
Otherwise, you probably if you it expires and someone from China puts up gets a domain name and puts up a casino site on it, you're probably looking at $8,000 to $10,000. Yeah, probably looking at $8,000 to $10,000 to get to purchase that domain name from them. I mean, it's gonna be a real hassle. So um,
Yep.
anyway, so yeah, I mean the same thing. Yeah, I mean the same thing with so at this point, um, I would keep, if you unless it's such a domain name that you don't think that you're never going to be connected with it anymore. What I would do is just when in doubt, renew it, um, and you can probably sell list it on list it for sale. you may be able to get, the renewal fees back for it. Um, and there's still, some really good domain names out there, and that
Oh
expire.
yeah.
I picked up searchengines.net fairly recently. It's expired that one. And somebody had that domain for, gosh, since 1998, and it was a live website.
Wow.
They paid for not from 1998 till today,
Wow.
so many and then it expired. And it is a generic, so it expired. There's not very good chance of them getting it back. Obviously, unless it's your company name or unless it's your name, go for generic names. I'm not a big fan of, you know, buying a domain name and using it, if it's somebody else's brand or somebody else's name,
Yeah, definitely
company
not.
name, etc.
It could be a trade.
Yeah.
It could be a trademark. It could open you up to liabilities that you don't want to simply don't want to deal with. So
Yeah, exactly. So, and then if you don't, if anybody's listening or watching this, if you don't have yourname.com, you know, then, you do need to go register it.
yes,
And if you
100%
cannot,
right
I'll
now.
make this offer. If it's your exact name, if you cannot, afford the $10.89 to register the name, let me know and
Don't
I will
forget to
buy you that
register the
domain name.
yournamesucks.com variation too, just to protect against
Actually, you don't
reputational
have to do
abuse.
that. You don't, yes. So you don't have to do that. Now, I'd like to mention, there are two services now one called Global Block. It's
Okay.
globalblock.co. And there's another one called Name Block, NAMEBLOCK, Name Block. And you can block. So, say you have brianharnish.com, okay? You can block you have that you would just be able to, you need to show that have rights to Brian Harnish, okay? And you can pay a certain amount per year, just one decent, one fee, and you will be able to block if someone goes to register brianharnish123.com or Brian Harnish, stinks.com or something like that. Any domain that includes your brand, whether it's, Brian Harnish, maybe they want to BR1AN for Brian.
Hey, don't
And
give
it's a
anybody any ideas.
version. Okay, it's a phishing version or a version of your name. They changed the I's to the one and they try to register brianharnish.com. Those will be blocked. Those domains, up to 500 different versions of your name. Okay, and the common phishing like PayPal,
Yep.
PayPal1.com. Okay, those will be blocked and no one will be able to, it will show as unavailable to register. So all those versions, up to 500 different versions, plus all this, 1,600 TLDs, brianharnish.net, brianharnish.org, those will be blocked and no one will be able to register them.
Why don't you repeat that service for viewers?
There's one service is called globalblock.co,
Uh-huh.
and the other one, is NameBlock, NAMEBLOCK. So those services, it's very good for for brands. And I know a company who has franchisees and franchises, and they have an attorney on staff whose just job is to police and take down websites that are being put up by people. Could be a franchisee or could be a competitor putting up using their brand. So Global Block and Name Block are great services because, like I said, you can pay one price and block, and nobody will be able to register that name.
Yeah, and
You
then you
do
don't
have
have
to
to
buy.
buy all those different variations.
Yes, exactly. And then, you wouldn't if somebody puts up a site or takes, your brand or your name, and you do not have to be a trademark owner. You don't have to own the trademark. So it is my understanding from talking with trademark attorneys. It's very difficult to trademark a personal name. So now there's a guy who is able to circumvent that process, and I might consider it. Um, but generally speaking, the in the United States Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO, they don't really allow you to put a trade, get a trademark on a personal name. That's kind of their policy. Um, you just can't. However, there's someone named William Joel who has able to get, and he has a trademark on Billy Joel.
Oh no.
So it is possible. And, I have considered doing that route with my name because Bill Hartzer, which I have, been gone, for years. That is not uh, that's not my legal name. And so it is at this point kind of a trademark or a common law trademark. Um,
Right,
so basically but with name block and global block, you just have to kind of show that you have the rights to, you have the rights to the name and or the brand, and they will block and they will block those. And if you're I have a tool that allows me to put in the name, your name, or the company name, and it's a free tool, and it will tell me how many potential names and versions will be blocked if you pay, if you pay for Global Block, it will show how many, it's a report. It basically says if, how many versions and how many domains registrations will be blocked per year, typically,
right.
for that. So yeah, it's
Very
very
interesting,
interesting.
Bill. Good stuff.
So yeah, so we're running, about 30 seconds to be having been on here an hour.
It's
So
already been an
a lot of
hour.
good stuff
Wow.
to talk about. Yeah, so I know that we need to schedule another time to do version 2 of this. Um, and
Definitely,
our
absolutely.
episode 2 and episode, maybe we'll do have this a series.
Yeah,
It's the Brian and Bill SEO show,
yeah. Why not?
and let's make this episode 1. So this has been the let's wrap it up. I'll say that this has been the episode 1 of the premiere episode of the uh, Brian and Bill chat SEO
Yeah,
advice chat series. And I guess we'll talk to everybody next time.
yeah. Have a great one, everybody.
Okay.